2 days ago, I met a mother of a child with autism, and it broke my heart listening to her stories and how us as Kiwis are treating some of these people. And by chance, it's Autism Awareness Month for April. So I have reached out to Tanya to come along and share some of her stories so we as Kiwis can care and show that we are one group of people looking after one another. So Tanya, as the mum of a beautiful girl, Maya, your daughter, what's it been like from when you first discovered that she had autism?
So what it's been like since we got the diagnosis of autism, it's been quite a journey, Simon. It's been heartbreaking and sad and terrifying is the word that pops into my mind more than anything else. It's been a bit bewildering. You don't sign up for this when you join the parenthood club. I had to really get to know my daughter on a completely different level, and I felt like I didn't have any idea where this was going, so it's scary. It's really scary. And heartbreaking in the fact that she's so misunderstood by the general public. And I wish people could see her like I see her.
So what do the general public think when they see Maya?
Naughty. Just think her behaviour is not appropriate, or she's just a naughty kid, or other adjectives. She's controlling, she's manipulative, but of course her world is out of control. She lives in a chaotic world that is not exactly suited to her. So she's going to try and get some control back, yeah.
So do people come up to you and say things?
They do. They give me parenting advice almost on a weekly basis, which again, I try and put a smile on my face, but it also breaks my heart. And I did lose a lot of confidence in the early days with Maya. I thought it was my fault. I felt so guilty about everything I did with her. People can be pretty cruel. They can say comments like, she just needs a jolly good smack. You just need to discipline her more. Can't you control your child? Why do you bring people like that out into the community? Why don't you just leave her at home? We don't want to see it.
Walk me through what it's like to go to a mall, to go to a movie theatre, or just to go shopping in a supermarket when you were taking somebody living with autism.
In the early days, it was terrifying for her. She didn't understand what the need was. Why did we go to the supermarket? How long were we going to be there for? So it's the preparation, and it's the, what am I going to do if the worst happens? And it's really having that exit strategy.
What's the worst?
The worst for me is her losing her dignity and me sitting in the middle of the floor with her trying to comfort her. Maya was 12 and we had different expectations. My expectation was we were going to buy a $7.99 toy. Her expectation in her head was the $79.99 toy. So big alligator versus little alligator. I thought, how am I going to get out of here? Because I can't buy an $80 toy. And so the grumbling started, the strange noises, her getting really, really upset, high-pitched sort of screaming, spinning in a circle. She'd flop down onto the ground. And I'm very keenly aware of what's going on around me and what people are thinking and saying. But also my focus is on helping her through this. I must have had about 5 or 6 comments that day from just the huffs or the puffs of for people walking by, the rolling of the eyes, to a woman even getting up in Maya's face and screaming at her and saying, stop this behaviour, this is inappropriate, you're old enough to know better, your mother needs to discipline you, this is outrageous, like throwing fuel onto a fire. So I needed to stay calm, and I did tell somebody, look, my daughter's got autism and she's really struggling. And so that's when the help started.
What can malls, supermarkets, restaurants do to help parents when they're going shopping, or even an adult living with autism?
Mm-hmm.
What can they do to help?
Look, it would be great if we could have quiet hours, obviously at supermarkets, at movie theatres. You remember we used to have baby screenings for movies. I remember taking my kids there early on, being respectful, I suppose, and asking the caregiver, what can we do? Because my daughter might be okay with the lights and the music, but it's so individual. It's not sort of a one-size-fits-all. But it's also what the parents can do or the caregivers can do. We need to be prepared. If I'm flying with Maya, I will phone ahead. I will email ahead to Air New Zealand, for example. I'm travelling with a person with autism, and this is what I need. It's always thinking ahead, and when people know, they're fantastic. No, so Air New Zealand will either say, yeah, come on through, or we'll board you last, whatever's easiest for Maya. So for me, Simon, it's a mind shift in understanding. I just wish everyone could be a little bit kinder and just think maybe that child's going through a really difficult day today. What can we do to help? Being part of an inclusive society would mean making allowances. It's just that one beautiful universal design. It's not almost, this is the status quo, and we're trying to squeeze people into what's already there. I think we should just be making a big place that everyone can fit into. All schools may have ramps to help children in wheelchairs. That's just universal design. All schools should be fenced. That is a huge issue for our kids. They're at kindergartens at 4, suddenly it's fenced. By the age of 5, they've got a runner, that's what they're called. The kids running out onto the road and the schools are applying for funding for fencing, and it's like, well, all schools, they should just be funded for fencing. I think we should just do it once, do it well, realise that this world is full of many neurodiverse people. We're just all here together. So I think the key is really understanding and relating it back to yourself. These people aren't being difficult. These people are not on the earth to wind you up. But I know that basis of understanding when Maya was 3, 4, 5, 6, when the teachers understood her, they played with her. And I think sometimes we're always trying to get these kids to do something. I'll hear teachers, how do I get him on the mat? How do I get him to focus? And I say, well, take that word get out of your vocab. Have you been with that person? Have you let that person know that you are just happy in their company? I'm not going to get you to do anything, I'm just going to hang. And for somebody with autism, what a lovely thing that somebody just wants to be with them. They're good enough just to be with, and I try and do that with my daughter every day. And that's what anyone wants, every human being wants, just to have that knowledge that somebody adores them just the way they are, and that's what we're trying to promote, really. The parents to feel that their child is just beautiful.
Tell me about Maya's first day at preschool.
Oh, my heart starts pounding. There was a lot of lead up to it. I was absolutely terrified. I remember being up all night, mainly because Maya was up all night. I didn't know how to prepare her. This is almost, I think, pre-diagnosis. So I just figured these teachers are never going to know a child like this, and I felt really alone. It was the loneliest day of my life, I think, as I went up to that gate, and I felt like I was deserting her. I couldn't explain to her that I was coming back. I couldn't say that you're going to be here to have fun and then I'm going to be back and we're going to go home. She did not understand. So that was awful. And then the teachers who had no clue what was going on with her either, it was just really hard. The first pickup was the worst. When I went to pick her up from school, from preschool, I was terrified of what they were going to say. But some kids got there before the teachers, and they made it perfectly clear that she wasn't welcome, that they didn't like her, that she threw rocks, that she threw sand, that she hit someone, and that she bites herself and she hits her head. What's wrong with her? What's wrong with your daughter? What's wrong with Maya? And I never knew what to say. It's like, she's just my girl. There's nothing wrong with her. She's just beautiful. And the teachers Tanya, can we have a word in the office? And it's like, oh God, what's happening? And they would talk to me very gently about, there's something different about Maya. We'd like to try and help. So that was good. But the other parents, I felt their withering looks.
What were some of the comments that were made to Maya at preschool from the other kids who didn't know?
Yeah, so even at the age of 2 and 3, these kids have found a way to exclude children with autism. They're perhaps taught if the child with autism approaches you, because Maya used to think starting a game of Tiggy meant going and hitting somebody. She didn't know. So they would be afraid of Maya. They would call her names. And they would tell me, we call Maya the weirdo, or she can't even talk properly. What's wrong with her? All that social interaction that was expected of her. We expected far too much. And so she always failed. She thought her name was No Maya for the first 3 years of her life. That was the interaction that she received at the kindy. No Maya, stop it Maya, get down Maya. And no one was playing with her and getting to know her. So the kids very early on, they know these kids are different. So if they know they're different, wouldn't it be wonderful to teach the kids at that age about autism? And this is what you can do. You can stand beside the child. The teacher can support you in a back and forth game. We can take pictures and stick it in the child's proud book so they can see how well they're playing with other children, and how wonderful for the parent to pick up the child and say, look at her sitting next to Eloise. It would make my day. Anything positive that a teacher says about my child can make me fly for the rest of the day. But those early days of hearing negativity and what she can't do, it's a very deficit model. No one talks about what they can do. And I feel really sad that I wasn't able to provide that for Maya, that early basis of education, that wasn't available.
I have a beautiful 5-year-old who's at school with a child who is autistic.
Yeah.
What can I do with my daughter and tell my daughter so she can be supportive to that little girl?
I love that question. I love that question because it's back to the other children. And I think the misunderstandings and the bullying comes from just not being aware of what that other child is going through. So if, for example, your daughter had somebody who was blind, that there'd be some understanding around that. Okay, she's going to be needing help to get to the toilet or into the playground, and there'd be a buddy system. And I think we need to do the same with young people. I think bullying comes from not understanding. But that's where the parent is. Sometimes a parent may not want to disclose that the child's got autism. But let's not kid ourselves. The other kids know there's something different. And when you give those other kids knowledge about how they can help, that's being inclusive. Working on the other children. There's lovely books out there. There's resources. Books like All Cats Have Asperger's Syndrome and things like that. It's just talking about this person may need to do things a bit differently. This person may need a few more things written down. This person will need a break. They will need scheduled breaks.
What do I tell a 5-year-old?
Yep.
What do I tell her that she can do
Yep.
to include that beautiful little girl who has autism?
Yeah. There's a couple of things. We like to talk about stay, play and talk. It might just be the first step along that journey of inclusion. It's just taking things to that little child with autism and not perhaps asking questions, but just making some comments. I like your picture. Because when we fire questions at somebody with autism, this little girl might have all the language in the world, but when we fire questions, that puts a lot of pressure on that person with autism. So I'd teach the 5-year-olds just to make lovely comments. I love your picture. Oh, look at mine. So there's no pressure. Don't expect an answer. So it doesn't have to be back and forth all the time. This child may just be getting used to the classroom situation. What I'd obviously like to see the teacher do to include this child in group activities, it's got to be well structured. So the teacher may start a pattern or a structured activity with the little girl with autism, The little girl with autism just wants certainty. She's looking for a pattern because school is so random. The kids are everywhere, there's random games, the rules of the games even change. So for somebody with autism, they've seen a game of tag one day in the playground, and think, oh, that must be how you make a friend. So the next day, out of context, this child with autism might go to shove another child, thinking that's how you make a friend. So it's really, really hard. So if there's a structured pattern to a group activity, what I'd like to see the teacher is get that pattern established, bring another child in, but the teacher's there for support. The teacher's there to keep the emotional engagement up. It's not going to be long sometimes, but that will help the other children get a bit more confidence. Because the other children may go up to the little girl with autism and say, hey, do you want to play? And I can tell you with 100% certainty that the answer will be no. If you can if you can try rephrasing those questions, any question you ask that could possibly end in a no will be no. It's the go-to, or I don't know, it's boring. So a question may be, do you want to go to the playground holding this hand or this hand? Or should we jump to the playground or should we walk backwards to the playground? It's all these lessons in communication that the teacher can pass on to the other children. Be kind and understand that child's having difficulty.
How does an adult live with autism?
Hopefully with a lot of support. That's what I'd like to say. I think they come up with their own strategies a lot of the time. They've learnt what works for them. And there's no book on it as such, it's just what works for that individual. So you've got people with autism in the community, they're holding down jobs, they may be married, they may be having children, and they've developed their own strategies of writing everything down, of having a plan, of keeping their life a bit same.
Tell me the different degrees of autism.
So as far as degrees of autism, we hear a lot about high functioning and low functioning. When people ask me where Maya is on that spectrum, I really don't know what to say because Maya is just Maya. I don't really like to place her anywhere. But there's a huge spectrum. There's people who are very capable and out in the community. And then there are people who will need support their entire lives. They will always struggle to communicate. And imagine being that person and not being able to communicate, and we wonder why they're so frustrated. We're trying to communicate with them the same way as everybody else, and it's our job to figure out how we can communicate with them. And that frustration when that frustration of communication is gone, and you can see a big difference in that person.
Tell me, when Maya finishes school, what is the future for you and Maya?
The reality is, when Maya leaves school, there is no support for her. So I have funding till she's 21, and then we're on our own. I don't know what the future holds. It terrifies me every day. It keeps me awake at night, wondering how I'm going to support Maya to have a fulfilling life, full of joy, full of purpose. And I would love to see her contribute to society. I want her to get up every morning with purpose and go and do something she loves. Everybody in this country deserves that. I love my job supporting people living with autism and teachers and professionals. I don't want to have to give that up, but I don't know what else I can do. I really don't. So her future is very much up in the air, and it scares me every day.
What does Maya think about her future?
She would like to open a petting zoo. I'm not sure how that's going to work in central Auckland. However, she wants to also be a bird rescuer. She loves helping animals. She's the kindest, sweetest thing, and I really hope to help her with that. Something to do with animals. I'm not quite sure what, Simon, but it's going to be something to do with animals.
How much money does the government give you a week to support you as the mother of a child living with autism?
There is the child disability allowance. I think that's about $46 a week. Depending on where you are in the country, in Auckland it's called the Taikura Trust, and you can get some support through there. And that's called carer support days. You can build up some support days So you can have a break and somebody can come in and look after your child. So that's if you are entitled to do that. And again, we have to fight for that.
How important is Autism New Zealand as a group to support you and people like you?
Life-saving for me, actually. I was so pleased there was somebody on the end of the phone just to listen to me, just to hear what I was saying and that I'm lost. I don't know what to do now. Where's the roadmap? I've got this beautiful child with autism. I don't know what to do. And imagine how scary that is, to admit, to make yourself vulnerable and expose yourself that I don't know what to do with my own child. I was gutted. But the best thing that ever happened for me was going to some courses, educating myself on autism. Professionals may come and go, but I'm going to be the enduring educator. No one is going to be here longer than me. So when I learnt how to help Maya and support her, it was life-changing. My life at home changed. We want to keep those programs running at Autism New Zealand. We want to be able to get around the country, educate parents, educate teachers, help them realise that that little person they have is unique and awesome, and let's help them reach their potential. Let's go, let's do it.
Tell me, how difficult was it to get funding, and what percentage of people with an autistic child are successful in getting funding from New Zealand support?
Oh, a very, very low number. So the system requires you to create this document, and I have to say I burnt that document in the backyard because I never wanted Maya to read it about herself. A very low percentage, maybe 2%, who apply for that sort of funding to get help at school. The rest are denied. So you've got a lot of people who are unsupported. You've got schools trying to support that child using their own funding for teacher aid hours. And then there's the amazement that these poor teacher aides aren't trained in autism. So we think it's okay that these children are shadowed. It's not okay for children to be followed around and shadowed. If they're being followed and shadowed, we want them to be engaged. We want them to be having fun. And for us, especially at Autism New Zealand, we highlight fun. And we want parents to have fun with their children. We want to bring it back to really simple. You want your child to look back on their childhood and go, wow, that was awesome. Thanks, I had a blast. I wasn't full of going here, there, and everywhere and trying to fix me. It was people, understanding that this is me and I'm okay. But the percentage is so small, and we see a lot of kids struggling in the mainstream system. And a lot of them are stood down, Simon, at the age of 7. I've heard of 7-year-olds who've been to 5 different schools, and because of their behaviour, the school can't handle it. And a lot of our parents, they leave work and they homeschool. And that's just a reality in this country. Our teachers need resources, they need support, they need decent education around autism. If indeed, under the banner of inclusion, if we want really this country to be inclusive, then those teachers need support, as do the police department. A lot of other departments, they need basic training in autism if we really want people with autism to be a part of this community and not separated. We don't want them to be apart from the community, we want them to be a part of it. So we've got a long way to go, but I think we're making small steps. And the more people I see travelling around the country, I see wonderful teachers just begging for help to understand these children. What's the child's angle? And when they see that that's not a naughty child, that this is a child that's absolutely terrified, and all their reactions, all their behaviours are just human, and put in a similar situation, we would behave exactly the same way. So, that's what we try to do when we talk to people. It's like, this is what it's like. This is how you might feel. And again, when you can relate it back to yourself, it's like, wow, that's scary. I don't want to do that. What can I do to help that person with autism? It's all about us changing, not them. When we change, you'll see a wonderful difference in the child with autism. You'll see them relax and have fun.
Tell me some of the stories you see of other parents that have no funding for their autistic child.
Yeah, they're in a hard place. They're in a really hard place. a lot of the time, as I said, us mums are parenting alone. That just seems to be something that happens. There's so much stress put on the family, and of course there's differing ideas of how to go about supporting this child that you've got. I've heard nightmare stories that absolutely break my heart, and again, I put on a kind face. They don't see me get on the plane and crying all the way home back to Auckland because I feel, what am I doing enough? Am I getting the word out there enough? Am I doing all I can? Because these families are in crisis. They've got children who are only getting bigger. The behaviours are huge.
Give me an example.
You've got kids who are so stressed out from school. They might be able to hold it together at school. They'll come home and there'll be smashed windows, curtains pulled down, there'll be physical altercations. The worst thing for me is when my daughter self-harms. That kills me. She's pretty much got it under control. We've tried to teach her other strategies, but there's a lot of biting and hitting herself, which breaks my heart. So a lot of other kids self-harming. They don't have the strategies to calm down. If we're getting anxious, we've got a number of calming down strategies. We can phone a friend, we can get a glass of wine, we could go for a run, go for a walk. And my daughter didn't have that. Some of these kids, they haven't been taught different strategies. So they get high, they get anxious, they've got nowhere to go. And of course we think we're helping by trying to calm them down by talking to them, and it's sort of the opposite. It's like you kind of back off. All you can do in those situations is really stay safe. Keep other people safe, keep them safe, keep yourself safe, and just wait for it to blow over. And it's heartbreaking to see a child so upset and out of control. And this is a daily occurrence for some families. So you feel guilt. The parents feel guilt about their relationship with their partners. There's no time being allotted for that, or other children. I still carry that guilt. My other daughter didn't get all of me, and my husband certainly didn't. You throw yourself into autism, think, how can I fix this for her? But the daily reality is like, wow, we've got a big night ahead of us. People come home and relax. Sometimes that's not the reality for families with autism. This is when the day begins, and then all night long. And then we have to get the energy to do it all over again and take these kids to school.
All I hear on the news is how the government is doing yet another investigative thing. Why are you not getting support from the government?
Really good question. It's hard when you're in the middle of it. Some of these parents really just have the energy to get through the day, literally. We meet together on Facebook groups, and we sometimes try and get across the line. And in my presentations, I talk to parents. It's like, hopefully it's changed from 13 years ago when I went through that process of getting funding. It's like, no, it's just the same. The way I'm working with the government now is we have developed programs that we've worked really hard on that have got a reputation now, and so we are getting the government contracts, which is fantastic. And that's the way we're getting support from the government. It's like, we've put our tender in, we were successful, and when we get that funding from the government for those courses, families don't have to pay. We can travel around the country and come to them. We can even go into their homes, meet their child, give them strategies. So for me, that is wonderful. I mean, in my perfect world, I would like to see, under this banner of inclusion, this social experiment we're running, just really see that this child is different, and that's okay. I'd like to see schools for autism. Why not? Why can't parents have a choice? We've got girls' schools, we've got boys' schools, we've got Catholic schools, but it seems to be this big, we can't have a school for autism. Well, we've got the Home Eye College for people who are blind. It's for me as a parent, just to be having a choice. And when I drop my daughter off at school, I don't think about her again. She's adored, she's understood, she's thriving because her anxiety is low, so you can learn. These kids in mainstream schools with little support are so highly anxious on the edge. they can't take anything, and we don't learn when we're upset or anxious. So,
How do marriages cope when you have a child with autism?
a lot of them don't, Simon, sadly. It's a huge pressure on a marriage. You've both been brought up differently, you've got different ideas of how to parent anyway, and then you've got autism thrown into the mix. You've got one parent who gets a bit of education on autism and tries something different, and the other parent thinking, well, that's not the way I was brought up, and I'm not going to do that, she's got to learn. It puts a big pressure on the marriage, and for a lot of people it's just easier parenting alone, actually.
What's it like going on an aeroplane with Maya?
Oh, she's actually very cool. Now they've got the TVs on the back, so yeah. I kind of rely on that.
Lifesaver, really. Huh?
Yeah. She won't touch the food, of course, and then in a big loud voice, well, that looks disgusting. I'll think it, don't say it, Mum. Yeah, she's
don't think I'm going to volunteer to cook at lunch or dinner or even breakfast.
Yeah, Maya's got 5 foods, basically all the same colour. So.
Yeah. What are they? What does she eat?
Usually yellow things. So she likes sausage rolls, chicken nuggets, French fries, riceys, fish. But it's got to be fresh snapper, like caught that day, and it's got to be done in the oven by Mummy, which is just lemon juice, maybe a bit of butter, a little bit of lemon juice, nothing else. And that is about it. She hasn't had a vegetable or a piece of fruit since she was 15 months old.
So to all the parents that are listening right now thinking, oh, how terrible that you feed your child sausage rolls and no fruit and vegetables, what do you say to them?
Yeah, again, don't judge. This is my reality, and all those things you're thinking of that you would do for your child, don't you think we haven't tried it? Oh, yes, we have. We've been there, done it, realised it was not working. So, I've got a lot of things to think of. I can't be getting myself overwhelmed by everything that I want to change all at once. So I gave myself permission to relax. And when I did relax, I still offer her new foods from time to time, and then I duck. She's scared of new foods, to be honest. It's like, I don't know what it is. What's it going to taste like? What's it going to do to my body? So that's just my reality, and she's fit and healthy and a good weight, and she's actually still getting a glass of formula from when she was a baby. That's her in the morning with breakfast. She gets a glass of all the nutrients that she obviously is, that's all I can do.
Your boss said something once to you that really upset you.
Yes, he caught me on a bad day, and again, we put on our coping faces and put a smile on, and I had one daughter was at a special school in West Auckland because that was the best place for her, but I had another daughter on the other side of town, so I had to pick up at 2:30 and had to get across town for 10 to 3. And my boss, who is, he knows a lot about autism, and but he doesn't live with someone with autism. And he said something really flippant, and he was only joking. And my daughter had just made this huge mess, and I was picking up the toys, and he goes, oh, look at these parents picking up after their children. And all I heard was him judging me, and I'd had enough. I must have had a bad experience at the supermarket or whatever. And I just turned and I let him have it. And I really did let him have it. It's amazing we're still friends today.
What did you say?
I said, how dare you? With some more colourful words in there. How dare you? You get to clock out. You get to clock out at 2:30. You go home to your beautiful little neurotypical family and think nothing more of it. This is not the case for me. I take my daughter home. She's had 6 hours at school. A lot of parents pay the price for that. They come home and they're very stressed out. So we've got a whole evening of dealing with perhaps behaviours of not eating, and then my daughter loved to party at night, so she wouldn't sleep at night, so neither would I. And it's that build-up of frustration, I guess, that you just don't feel understood, that I'm never quite getting it right as a parent. And I guess I heard that as a criticism, and I was really defensive, and it's like, you don't know what you don't know. However, to his credit, And this is where, we started writing programs together. He sat me down, he said, Tanya, you are absolutely right. I don't know what it's like to live with someone with autism. Tell me about it. So he was probably one of the first professionals who really heard me. He heard me for the first time, and he said, let's write some programs. And I was all on board from there on in. It was like parent, professional. Let's let the parents be heard.
I challenge you to support Autism New Zealand by going online to gaults-deli.co.nz, purchase some Gault's 100% sweetened by vegetables, smoked chipotle ketchup, and we will give 100% of the profits to Autism New Zealand.